Creating extraordinary success in business and life is absolutely possible. That means more income, more freedom, and more energy for what you value most without the hustle or burnout. I'm Laura Flood, certified success and high performance coach, CEO for over 30 years, and a multiple seven-figure entrepreneur. I've built a profitable, sustainable business while prioritizing my family, my health, and my happiness, and I'm here to help you do the same. This is the Redefining Success Podcast, where I'll share the strategies, tools, and the mindset shifts to help you grow with intention, live a life you love, and create lasting happiness, wealth, and freedom without losing yourself in the process. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Redefining Success Podcast. Today's conversation is about focus, but I want to frame it in the same way that I do in private coaching with the high performers that I work with. So not focus as productivity or discipline, because focus isn't always something that you have to fix with better habits or tighter routines. We're talking about focus and the way leadership actually operates in your life and your business when you reach a certain level of success. Focus shapes how you move through your day, how you make choices when the pressure is real. It shapes how your business feels on the inside, even when things look great on the outside. It determines how you carry yourself and also how other people experience you. So this episode is for people who are doing well, those of you who are responsible for so many outcomes, decisions, teams, clients, or families. I want to name that right away because so many conversations about focus, they assume that something's broken, that you're distracted, or that you need better follow through. Many people think that you just need to get more organized. That's not what I see in my work. What I see are capable, committed leaders who are carrying a lot of context at the same time. Their days are full of things that matter. Their calendars reflect responsibility, not chaos. And yet, internally, something starts to feel off. Nothing dramatic or alarming, but just enough to notice. They're getting things done, but their attention feels stretched. They're productive, but their mind never feels settled. They move from one part of the day to the next while still carrying mentally what came before, and then they're always anticipating what's coming after. There are seasons where everything in business is moving, new opportunities, conversations, and new ideas. There are things to fix, to build, and there's so many things that feel exciting and important. But as your business grows and your visibility increases, the number of things that legitimately deserve your attention, that grows too. There are more conversations to track, more decisions to make, and honestly, a lot more consequences attached to each choice. At that point, focus stops being about managing tasks and it starts being about managing your leadership load. I've watched this play out for decades, both in my career and also coaching other high performers. So early on, focus feels easier because the scope is smaller. You're in this place where you're building and you're proving, you're focused, and you're always moving towards something. The decisions then, they're so much easier because there's less options and less distractions. But later, the challenge, that all changes. You're no longer asking, what should I be doing? Then you find yourself asking, what deserves my attention right now? And that's a very different question. Most people don't realize that they need a new answer until their leadership starts feeling heavier than it should. And if you're listening to this, you're likely not someone who needs more ambition or someone who needs a motivational speech about discipline. Most of the people that I coach, they're already doing a lot right. They have great work ethic, they have the capability, leadership experience, and they have people depending on them. What they want is something different. They want to feel steadier inside the life that they've built. They want clarity that stays with them when the day gets noisy. They want their energy and their confidence to feel more predictable, no matter how the day went, if it was perfect or not. That's what focus helps create. What often surprises people is that focus breaks down most often during success. When your life expands, the number of things that you could pay attention to, that expands too. And then suddenly everything feels important. This is not a time management episode. This is a podcast episode about identity, leadership, and operating at a level where you protect what matters instead of always reacting to what's showing up. So here's the core truth that I want you to hold as we move forward today. Your focus, it's already telling a story about what matters most in your life. It tells your brain and your nervous system a story. Also, through your calendar and the people around you, too. That's where your story shows up. I hear this in coaching conversations all the time. People say, nothing is wrong, but I feel like I'm always thinking. Or my days are full, but I don't feel grounded inside them. Or I know what matters, but I'm constantly being pulled in so many directions. Those aren't time issues, they're attention issues. Focus at this level, it isn't about what you can pay attention to, it's about what you decide not to. So it's the filter that determines how much mental energy you carry around from one moment to the next. It's really what allows you to be present in the room that you're in rather than being split between what just happened and what's coming later. In this episode, we'll look at focus through three different lenses. First, focus as a leadership choice rather than an efficiency technique. Second, why focus breaks down as your success grows and how to address it without turning your life into some rigid plan. And third, how focus directly affects energy and presence, which is often what high performers they want most. I'll share some client stories and also a personal season where I learned this the hard way. And I'll also give you a simple way to apply this immediately without adding more to your plate. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about letting your attention support the life and business that you've already built. Let's get into it. Let's talk about focus as a leadership choice. I want to start here because the way most people talk about focus doesn't match the level they're operating at anymore. Most conversations about focus, they stay very surface level. They talk about notifications, time blocking, batching email, or productivity tools. And those things are useful, and I'm not dismissing them. But if focus were simply a settings issue, most high performers wouldn't be struggling with it at all. At this level, focus is rarely a habit problem. It's really a leadership standard problem. So, focus is the agreement that you make with yourself about what gets access to you. It's not just what you work on, it's what you allow in your mind first thing in the morning. It's what you tolerate interrupting you throughout the day when you're doing important, meaningful work. It's really what you prioritize when multiple things feel important at the same time. And focus becomes personal at this level because you're no longer just managing simple tasks all day. You're managing outcomes, people, money, relationships, decisions, and that internal expectation that you should be able to hold it all together. So, one of the most common things I hear in coaching is I feel pulled in so many directions. And that sentence, it often sounds like a time issue, but it's not. It's really a containment issue. As your business grows and your leadership expands, your world changes. People have access to you. Technology has so much access to you, and requests can enter your mind before you even decided what the day is meant for. When there's no clear internal boundary, your attention starts to feel like shared property. Your day starts off reacting instead of directing, even if your calendar looks organized. I want to show you what I mean with a client example. Jenna is an entrepreneur with a really strong business. She has multiple revenue streams and a full calendar. She is capable and she's respected and successful. From the outside, she looks like someone who has everything handled, everything figured out. But what she told me was this: I'm doing everything, but I don't feel grounded. I feel like I'm always bracing for what's next. And that word, bracing, It really mattered. It told me that her nervous system never felt settled, even on productive days. So I asked her one question that changed the direction of our work. I asked her, where is your attention going before you've decided what you want to focus on? And that question stopped her because she realized her attention was being claimed even before she chose how to use it. There were so many messages, urgency, and requests that were setting her priorities for her. So we didn't reorganize her business or start to change her offers. We didn't add any new systems. We just decided to start with one decision. We started with one daily focal point. It wasn't this long list or a detailed plan for the week. We decided that she needed to make one clear decision about what deserved her best energy before the day began. So she chose a 90-minute focus window in the morning and then treated it like a leadership standard rather than a suggestion from me. So during that window, she did not check messages. She didn't jump between all these open tabs in her window or on her computer. She didn't respond real quick. She stayed with one meaningful priority that moved her business forward. That first change, it wasn't external, it was really internal. She told me that her brain felt quieter. And then she said something even more important. She said that she felt like she trusted herself again. And this is the part that rarely gets talked about. Self-trust at this level isn't rebuilt through some big breakthrough or a major win. It's really built through the daily experience of following through on what you said mattered. Focus is how you keep that agreement with yourself. When your day begins with a focal point that you choose, you stop waking up in reaction mode. You stop handling you're handing your identity to the loudest demand, and you start leading your day instead of chasing it. And that's what leadership looks like at this level. It's choosing your first move intentionally. There's another layer here that matters just as much. Focus is also how you teach other people how to relate to you. If your team experiences you as always instantly available, they will build their decisions around that access. If your clients learn that you respond immediately no matter what, that becomes the expectation. If your family experiences you mentally elsewhere, even when you're physically present, that quietly becomes the normal. Your attention creates patterns, and patterns turn into expectations. And then expectations shape the culture, both your business and in your life. So, this is why focus isn't just personal, it's relational, it's operational, and really it's a leadership standard, whether you've named it or not. So, I want to pause here and offer a reflection because awareness almost always comes before change. When you look back at the last 7 days, where did your attention go that you didn't consciously choose? Not really where your time went, but where did your attention go? There's a difference. Time can be filled with important things and still feel fragmented. I want you to think about the moments where you were physically doing one thing when you were mentally carrying several others. This is so important because those moments, they accumulate and they start to shape how leadership feels inside your body. And I've lived this myself. There was a season where my business was strong and my systems were in place, everything was good, but I was starting my days without containment. I would jump into messages early. I would handle urgent items before all of my prioritized meaningful work. And I told myself that I was being responsible. I was being a good business owner. But what I was actually doing was training my nervous system to stay on alert all day. I was in this fight or flight mode all the time. I noticed it in how my mind kept running at night. I noticed it in my patience and in the way that my days felt. And they just always felt unfinished, even when I had been productive that day. That's what happens when focus isn't treated as a standard. Your mind never closes the loop because it never knew what the loop was meant to be. What changed for me was deciding in advance what deserved my best energy. I protected one block of time for work that actually mattered, and I protected how my day ended. So my brain wasn't still carrying the business into the evening when I was moving to be with my family. So that shift, it really changed my presence and not just my productivity. It changed a lot. And that's why focus matters so deeply to me. It's not about being rigid. It's about being intentional enough that your life starts to feel like yours again. And now that we've established focus from a leadership choice, we need to talk about why it becomes harder to maintain as success grows. And that's where we're going next. Once leadership reaches a certain level, focus becomes harder because there is legitimately so much more to be carried. More of the decisions matter, more people rely on you, and outcomes are connected to what you notice and what you miss. So your mind isn't just holding today's work anymore, it's holding context and consequences all at the same time. This is the part that most people don't get warned about. Early in your career, focus often, it's simpler. It was easier because you had more discipline and the overall volume of the noise was so much less. But as success grows, the complexity grows with it. Your calendar fills with responsibility, and your mind fills with all of these layers. You're not just thinking about what you're doing today, you're thinking about payroll, client experience, team dynamics, market movements, future plans, and the life that you're trying to protect alongside the business that you've built. Your mind is carrying so much more, even on the good days. When this happens, focus starts breaking down when there isn't a clear internal filter for what matters now. So without that filter, everything feels relevant and important. Your attention keeps shifting in an effort to stay on top of it all. This is where many high performers assume that they need more discipline or more structure. But what they really need is clarity around what's not theirs to hold in this moment. I had a client, Alex, he described this perfectly. He said, "Everything in my life is moving, but I don't feel like I'm driving." That sentence tells you exactly what's happening. He wasn't lacking motivation or capability. He was living inside a week that was being shaped by random requests instead of his priorities. So we didn't start with a rigid schedule or a complicated plan. We started with rhythm. We talked about this before in a previous podcast. Rhythm feels different. It gives your mind something predictable to lean on. So Alex, he chose 2 anchor days for deep work with clear communication boundaries throughout those windows. And then he chose 2 days for meetings and leadership conversations. And he set a consistent time each week to review priorities. So his brain wasn't reinventing the plan every morning. He knew exactly what to do. So nothing about his workload magically disappeared, but what did change was how his life felt. He told me that he felt more calm, even though responsibility was still high. And that's the shift that we're after. Not necessarily less work, but less internal friction. Having rhythms, it matters so much because it reduces all of that decision fatigue. When your week has a predictable shape to it, your brain stops scanning constantly. Your nervous system stops bracing for what's next. And really, then leadership moves into intention. Now, there are 2 specific ways that focus tends to break down as success grows. And what I see is most high performers experience both. The first is opportunity overload. I often say, as high achievers, we never run out of opportunities or ideas. As our visibility increases, so do all of the options. We have more ideas and more potential directions to go in. We have more invitations. Your mind starts treating every possibility as something that really deserves consideration. If you're wired for excellence, it can start to feel irresponsible to say no. There's this quiet belief that you should be able to do it all and do it all well. This belief fragments focus because nothing ever gets its full attention. The second is access overload. More people can reach you. You get more messages. You have more expectations living in your inbox, your phone, and in your mind. Even when each interruption feels small, that cumulative cost, it's significant. And then the real problem isn't the interruption itself, it's the re-entry. Every time your attention shifts, your mind has to reorient. It has to remember where you were. You have to rebuild that focus and restart that emotional momentum of the work. So, over the course of a day, that constant restarting, it really creates exhaustion without obviously overworking. This is why people can work all day and still feel behind. It's not an effort issue, it's a continuity issue. Let me show you what this can look like in real life. I worked with a client, Rachel, who had a thriving business. And of course, she also deeply valued her family. She told me that she could handle responsibility, but she was so tired of feeling like she was everywhere at once. When we mapped out her day, the issue became really clear. She wasn't doing any meaningful work, so her attention never stayed in one place. She would start a project, respond to a message. Then she would quickly answer a team question, return to the project. Then the phone would ring, so she would take a call. And then all of a sudden it was the end of the day, and she had to shift into family time without ever closing one loop before opening the next. So by the end of the day, she was really depleted. And what we decided to do was just change one thing. We created clear communication windows. So she remained available and responsive, but not constantly anymore. Her business and her team learned when to rely on her attention instead of expecting that immediate response and that access all day long. So the effect, it was immediate. She told me that she felt like she had time to think again. And that's what focus gives you back. When you have your focus back, leadership changes. Your decisions feel clearer and your presence becomes easier. And I think most importantly, your confidence stops depending on how much you manage to juggle that day. So here's the point I want you to hear clearly. You don't need to focus on everything to be a strong leader, but you do need to focus on only what you can do. Success becomes so much easier to sustain when you get more specific about what really matters, and then you align your life intentionally to support that. I want to pause here with a reflection. Where does your attention create the greatest return in your life right now? Not the greatest urgency, but the actual greatest return. And where does your focus genuinely move things forward? And where does it get spent where it's not getting you actual results? And that distinction, that's the filter. That's the filter that allows us to focus and have that focus become a leadership standard instead of this constant daily struggle. So now that we understand why focus breaks down as success grows, we can talk about what focus actually makes possible at this level. There's a moment many leaders recognize quietly, and it's usually at the end of a full day. This is when, the work is technically done. You close your laptop or you shut down your computer, and there's nothing urgent really pulling at you anymore. But your mind, it's still so active. You're replaying conversations, tracking all of these unfinished thoughts, and you're just preparing for what's coming next. You are no longer working, but you definitely don't feel settled. That experience, it isn't about productivity. It's about how attention and energy interact when your focus never fully closes. So focus and energy, they're really inseparable. When your attention is fragmented, your energy just drains quietly. But when focus is stable, your energy becomes so much more predictable. Many high performers, they believe that they have an energy issue when what they're actually experiencing is attention fatigue. Attention fatigue, it creates this constant low-level mental noise. Even when you step away from your work, your mind keeps scanning. It tracks what wasn't finished yet, what might yet need a response, and what tomorrow requires. Your body may be resting, but your nervous system stays alert. This is why some people can take time off and still not ever feel restored. Rest requires your mind to know that it's safe to stop scanning. And focus, that's what creates that safety. I want to share a personal turning point here because this was where everything changed for me. There were years when my business was great, but I started noticing something that was bothering me deeply. I could totally be physically present with my family, yet mentally I was still running the business constantly in the background. It didn't feel disengaged or I wasn't really resentful, but I felt divided. I love my work and I always have, but I love my family and my life even more. And that awareness, it really shifted how I thought about focus. I stopped seeing it only as something that mattered during work hours. And I started to see it as something that shaped how my entire day felt, especially in those transition periods. So, one of the most impactful changes I made was creating a closeout rhythm at the end of each workday. It wasn't complicated. It was just really a deliberate pause that would signal to my mind that work was complete for the day. I I talk about this all the time with the clients that I coach because this is probably one of the hardest things for them is to turn off their mind. So during this pause, I would review what mattered. I would capture anything unfinished so it wasn't just floating in my head. And then I would just consciously close the loops. That small practice really changed how my evenings felt. I noticed that I could actually be present with the people I cared about without mentally carrying everything else alongside them. And that's what focus does at this level. It really protects your presence and your peace. Presence doesn't come from trying harder to be present. It really comes from reducing all of that mental clutter and that noise that's draining your nervous system. Focus is the pathway that makes presence possible. And this is why people respond differently to focused leaders. They feel steady and their tone carries less urgency. Their decisions really land with clarity. And even when they're handling a lot, they don't bring all of that scattered energy into the room. Their steadiness, it creates trust and it creates this experience that others really feel when they're around you. So, I want to offer you a simple practice that you can use immediately. Choose one part of your day where presence matters the most right now. It might be in the beginning of your morning or a meeting that you lead, or it might be that transition from work to home. So, choose one moment. And then ask yourself, what would support your attention in that space? So here, we're not redesigning your life. You're just setting a standard. And standards, they really matter so much because they reduce negotiation. When you're not constantly renegotiating with yourself, that's when you start to stabilize your energy and your confidence. And there's one more layer here that I think is really important. Focus isn't only about what you pay attention to, it's also about what you stop giving attention to. And for high performers, that often includes the urge to constantly check in. There's this belief that staying on top of everything equals responsibility, or the assumption that availability is the same as leadership. And here's the thing. You can lead well without being constantly reachable, and you can be responsible without carrying everything in your mind at all times. You can build success while protecting your attention. And that's what redefining success looks like in practice. It's important to remember that focus is not something that you master once and then you move on from. At this level of leadership, it's really something that you have to relate to daily. How you direct your attention shapes how you experience your work, your relationships, and also yourself inside this life that you've worked so hard to build. When your focus stays framed as a tactic, it just feels like one more thing to manage. But when focus becomes a standard, it really starts to shape how your days open and close without constant effort. What we've talked about today, it's not about doing more. It's about reducing that quiet friction that comes from carrying too much in your mind all at once. So instead of giving you this long list of actions, I want to offer one clear decision to work with this week. So choose a focal point, not a new routine or a full reset, just one focal point that will support how your leadership really needs to feel right now in your life. And not so much how it looks, but how it feels. So this focal point, it should be something simple enough that you can actually honor it, even on the days that are so full. It's not meant to overhaul your schedule or add structure for the sake of structure. It's really meant to create containment where your attention currently feels most stretched. So there are two places where this tends to make the biggest difference. The first option is a morning focus container. This is a protected block of time, even if it's brief, where you decide in advance what deserves your best energy before the day starts making all those requests. And during that time, you focus on one important priority instead of scattering your attention across several things. And this works especially well if your mornings tend to feel reactive or if you feel like you're starting the day already feeling behind. The second option is the end of the day closeout. And this is what I was talking about before. This is a deliberate pause that really allows your mind to let go of all of those unfinished loops. When you do this, you capture what needs your attention tomorrow. You really take the time to acknowledge what mattered today. And more importantly, it's also a signal to yourself that your work is complete for now. This option works especially well if your evenings feel mentally busy or if you struggle to fully disengage even when the workday is over. So, neither option is better than the other. A lot of people I coach do both, but the right choice right now is the one that supports the life that you're actually living right now, not the one that you think you should choose. So once you've chosen your focal point, treat it as a leadership standard for the next 7 days. And for the next week, that doesn't mean that you execute it perfectly. It it means that you return to it when you notice yourself drifting. And the return that's really the work. As you move through this next week, pay attention to subtle shifts rather than outcomes. I want you to notice how your energy feels when you use your attention as a clear anchor. Notice what decisions feel easier and how your presence shows up in moments that matter to you. At the end of each day, I really want you to reflect on one question. Did my focus today reflect the kind of leader that I'm choosing to be? And that question, it's not about judgment or pressure. It's really about alignment. It gives you information without asking you to push harder. And this is how self-trust is rebuilt at this level through all of the quiet consistency of honoring what you say matters. Because when your attention matches your intention, momentum becomes calmer, and then your confidence feels steadier and less conditional. So we have to remember that focus isn't about getting it right every day. It's really about noticing when you've drifted and then just choosing again, making the choice to choose again. That simple act repeated over time, it's what allows success to feel sustainable and the life to feel present. So that doesn't mean that you execute it perfectly. It means that you return to it when you notice yourself drifting. And the return, that's the work. As you move through this next week, I would love for you to pay attention to the subtle shifts rather than the outcomes. I want you to notice how your energy feels when your attention has a clear anchor. Notice when decisions feel easier and how your presence shows up in the moments that matter most to you. At the end of each day, I want you to reflect with one question. Did my focus today reflect the kind of leader that I'm choosing to be? So that question, it's not about judgment or pressure. It's really about alignment. And this gives you information without asking you to push harder. This is how self-trust is rebuilt at this level. It's through all of that quiet consistency of honoring what you say matters. When your attention matches your intention, momentum becomes calmer, and what's really great is your confidence feels steadier and less conditional. So, focus isn't about getting it right every day. It's about noticing when you've drifted and just choosing again, deciding to make a different choice. And that simple act, repeated over time, is what allows success to feel sustainable and life to feel present. If this episode resonated with you, it's likely because you're recognizing a quiet truth about leadership at the level that you're at. As your responsibility grows, your attention becomes more expensive. And it's not always in obvious ways, but it kind of runs in the background of your day. It's how much mental space leadership occupies and how often your mind stays engaged, even when the moment has shifted. So most successful leaders, they adapt to that without ever questioning it. They assume that caring more internally is just the trade-off for building something meaningful. And that's where my work comes in. In private coaching, we look closely at how your attention is being used and really what it's costing you. We identify where leadership has become mentally demanding in ways that no longer serve you. And then we set standards that allow focus to support your role rather than drain it. So the work is really specific, it's practical, and it's designed around the life that you want to be living now, not a version of success that requires constant mental strain. Inside the Redefining Success Collective, that same refinement happens with consistency. So instead of trying to recalibrate on your own, you're supported as we implement focus and structure and clarity. It just becomes part of how you lead over time. So the collective isn't about adding another commitment. It's really more about removing the unnecessary weight that leadership has been carrying. If you are ready to explore what that could look like for you, the links to apply for private coaching or to join the Redefining Success Collective, they're in the show notes. So before we wrap up today, I want to remind you about what we're carrying into this week ahead. So focus is about deciding what deserves your attention and allowing the rest to wait without guilt. At this level of leadership, the quality of your attention, it shapes the quality of your experience in life and business. When your focus is scattered, your responsibilities feel heavier than they need to. And this doesn't happen through a single decision. It's built through small choices made with clarity. So each time you honor what matters most, you reinforce the kind of leader that you're becoming. So as we move forward, choose one focal point to anchor your days and let it guide you on how to start or close out your day, depending on whatever your life is asking for right now. And pay attention to how that decision changes the way your energy moves throughout the day. So thanks for spending time with me today. If this episode supported you, share it with someone who would appreciate this conversation. And if you choose to leave a review, I'd really appreciate it. It helps this work reach other high achievers who are ready for success to feel more grounded and present. Looking forward to seeing you next week.